Okay, here we are again. We're moving along. We're on chapter 5. We've already talked about becoming a fair-minded thinker, how to think clearly, logically, honestly, comprehensively, and so forth, right? And then we talked about the 4 stages of development. There's 6 altogether. They deal with the first 4. Where are you? Most people in general, never mind students, are probably first or second stage, right? Knowing little to nothing about critical thinking or applying little to nothing about critical thinking. And to me, that's a sin. It's one of education's great oversights. All right. Because critical thinking is the crux of the biscuit, as the great Frank Zappa once said. It is everything. It is at the foundation of best thinking across the board, smallest, mid, large decisions, issues, concerns, just thinking in general, clear, concise, logical, fact-based, honest, courageous thinking. Look at all the terms, right? I think that's back in chapter 1 or 2. Uh, then you understand the self, right? You understand what fair thinking is. That you've looked at that, you've analyzed the definition of fair thinking. Then you look at what's going to be using that thinking, you, right? And then once you go to you go outside of you and look at the complex world. Then start to break down into more detail the parts of thinking. And then we get to the standards of thinking, right? So this stuff builds upon itself. It builds logically, comprehensively, very comprehensively. There's 20 chapters in here. There's a lot in each of these chapters as well, sometimes too much, but better to have more than less, too much than too little. So let's begin. A fundamental goal of critical thinking, fundamental, keyword, be a keyword seeker. As a critical thinker, you're always looking for keywords and phrases. What is at the foundation? What is most fundamental? What is essential? What is the main idea, main point, thesis, concept? What occurs most frequently? Einstein says if it occurs most frequently, you probably have to commit it to memory. If you don't, you leave it in the reference book and we'll look it up and use it on an as need basis, right? So fundamental goal of critical thinking is the ability to accurately look at the keywords accurately, not just not just a goal of critical thinking is to assess one's own reasoning. No, look at the adjectives, look at the adverbs, be a detailed thinker, communicator. Employers are looking for people, individuals, employers, family members, anybody in the community, local, community, state, nation, world. We need more and more and more good thinkers, honest thinkers, courageous thinkers, moral thinkers, ethical thinkers. Stop lying. Stop being partisan. Stop being mindlessly a part of a group, right? You could be a part of a group, but not mindlessly. Thank you very much. Fundamental goal of the critical thinking is the ability to accurately assess, I will emphasize keyword, one's own reasoning. To be good at assessment requires that we consistently pause for effect, consistently. One more time, because it's important. Important stuff usually comes in threes. Consistently take apart our thinking and examine the parts for quality. Sounds like, any type of analysis. That's stage 1 of thinking, critical thinking. I've got a car comes in, I'm a mechanic. I've got to analyze. Doctor, patient comes in, I got to analyze, right? You got to pull things apart, right? I'm in a business environment. I've got a problem. I've got an issue. I've got a concern. I've got to look at the parts. We do this using intellectual standards such as clarity. Again, go back to that chart. Remember that chart? It had 3 groups of words. Clarity, precision, and these are in tandem. These overlap in some cases, in some areas. Accuracy, relevance, depth, breadth is the width, right? I always say Martin Luther King, his essay was written so well. It's the best essay I've ever seen. No argument. And I've seen hundreds, thousands, hundreds at least. Great depth and breadth. You're really comprehensively covering it, right? Logicalness, significance, and sufficiency. If you go online to the interwebs, if you go to the social media, it's all jacked up and geared up and useless and pointless. It's a bunch of people with opinions stating things and making statements about things they haven't thought about, can't prove, and don't care. Start talking to people. If you hear somebody talking about something, you're talking about a political party or a politician, or maybe climate issues, racism, systemic racism, whatever, right? The war in Iran. You ask them first and foremost, how do you know? Where'd you get that from? Where'd you get your information from? Have you fact checked it, validated it? Have you cross-referenced it? Have you looked at other sources? Are you going with just one or two sources? Maybe even three? Maybe you need four, five, six. When I was studying many years ago, various disciplines, I started going through some of the most important or useful or prevalent disciplines in academia, such as math, science, history, economics, ethics, philosophy, theology, right? Just the fundamentals. Thank you, ma'am. And what did I do? Did I read one book, two books, three books, four? Sounds like Dr. Seuss, right? No, I read six, seven, and kept going after that, right? Because only after a while do you really start to see threads of significance in the logic and statements that are being made in these textbooks or books or videos nowadays, readings and viewings of the individual or individuals talking about said issues or concerns or discipline. Keep on going. Let's go. Critical thinkers recognize that whenever, listen, keyword, absolutes rarely happen. If somebody who really knows what they're talking about says all the time, whenever, no, rarely, never, right? Whenever, does that mean always? Pretty much, right? Whenever they are reasoning, they reason to some purpose, element of reasoning, right? Again, go to your charts. But their reasoning is improved when they are clear intellectual standards, right? So there was elements of reasoning, intellectual standards. There was three groups about that purpose or goal. Similarly, to reason well, they need to know that consciously or unconsciously. Now, is it unconscious or subconsciously? We talked about that. There's a difference, right? So maybe the authors do mean unconscious. The unconscious is deep, buried, however you say it, however you want to say it. Conscious, there's the conscious and subconscious. Subconscious is just underneath the conscious, and you can probably get to that. But the unconscious stuff, man, you got to work, get it, dig down deep to get that, right? That's what psychologists and psychiatrists drum up when you're having cataclysmic issues in your life. They deal with the unconscious. And that's kind of a scary territory to go into or to pull up, right? It's down there for a reason, usually for safety reasons, so that the individual doesn't panic, freak out, or have serious mental issues by revisiting that stuff in the unconscious, right? They use information, again, element. They should do this with every term in thinking, but their reasoning improves when they make sure the information they use is accurate intellectual standards, right? So there it is, right? I saw it. There was four, wasn't there? No, maybe there's only three. Element of reasoning, intellectual standards. Anyway, I thought there was a fourth one. Maybe there is. Reasoning. Oh, there is. Reasoning, standard, right? The element of reasoning, intellectual standard, element of reasoning, intellectual standard, right? Put another way, when people assess their own reasoning, they need to know how well they're reasoning. right? Um, they assess their reasoning by using intellectual standards when they realize the negative consequences of failing to do so. In assessing reasoning, we recommend these intellectual standards as essential standards for thought that everyone should internalize. And this is one of your lists, right? Clarity, accuracy, precision, sufficient. Is it sufficient knowledge? You have enough. You don't need to know it all. And good luck knowing it all about some issues like physiology or the environment, which have a plethora, a myriad of inputs or changes or depth or complexity, right? Relevance, depth, breadth, logic, significance, fairness. These are not the only intellectual standards a person might use. They are simply among the most fundamental and important in everyday life, right? So that's huge. All right. So are you into the stars? We've got some constellations of intellectual standards. Essential intellectual standards. Look at the key words again. Not just intellectual standards, but essential intellectual standards. They said that this is not an exhaustive list, or these lists don't have exhaustive terms, right? They're the ones that occur most frequently. I know I'm plugging in my phone. Hold on. All right. Charging. Good. Essential intellectual standards come from constellations. Whenever you see a word, try to visualize it. What are constellations? Constellations are groups of stars amongst all the stars that, when grouped together, mean something. Usually, when smart people use analogies and or metaphors, they're for a purpose, right? Not mistake prone like the average person or the average student throws it out there unknowingly without great depth of thought, forethought, pre-thought, current thought, afterthought. In constellations of intellectual standards that exist in all, there's an absolute. So it's important. When I was thinking about how am I going to teach my students and my six-pronged program that I use in my coaching, I borrow from that and I use that in my classes. I'm teaching one class. I teach classes just to get out of the house. My wife likes me to get away. Uh, so all, yeah, if it's an absolute, all, never, always, every time, right? Take note. Core. At the core, what's the core? The core of the earth. The earth's core is essential. Without the core, you don't have anything else. At your core, you've heard about core and the physical aspect of our physical well-being. How is your core strength? Not the strength in one hand, one arm, one extremity, one leg, one foot, but your core, overall core strength, core standards for reasoning. I know I sound like I'm going over this a little too much, maybe ridiculously so, but that's education. That's learning. That's how I do it to myself. I go over it again and again and again and again. One more, sir? Yes, I'll take another and another and another. So that I really know it. I've internalized it. I own it. It's become organic. It's become a part of my DNA. It's not just somebody else's knowledge or somebody else's terms, but it's mine. I took it in and I put it into a form that I understand so that I can use it. It's become organic. That's education. Just memorizing stuff so that you can get a good grade and then purge it and forget it. Purge it like a bad case of diarrhea. Sorry, that's how way too many students attend school or college. Clarity, the reasoning is unambiguous and understandable in context. Precision, the reasoning entails the necessary level of details, right? Again, if you're dealing with considerably complex issues like climate change yesterday in class, I went into great depth to be clear, precise, accurate, logical, showing great breadth and depth, sufficiency, fairness, even significance and relevance, even though those are lesser so of what I was attempting to demonstrate for my students as regards critical thinking, right? And I did that with climate change. And if you just go with the popular notion, climate change is real, I don't know what that means. And I don't know what climate change means. Is climate ever stagnant or stationary? No, it's always changing. What the hell does that mean? There was at one time in the 70s, and you can look up Leonard Nimoy as the narrator online on a YouTube video, in which he talked about what scientists were talking about back then, the coming ice age, imminent, where all could die, happening much sooner than later. By the time our grandchildren are around, could be the end of the world. Well, their grandchildren, Spock's grandchildren at that age, back in was 79, and he was probably 30 something, right? So definitely the grandchildren are around and nothing's happening. As a matter of fact, they stopped talking about ice freezing and then went to melting, right? Uh, global warming. And then it went to global climate change. I don't know. Is that a part? Is that still global warming or is there something else going on? I don't know. But anyways, I went over it in considerable detail with great sufficiency, fairness, depth, and breadth, and with great logic and accuracy and precision and clarity. What's really going on? What is at the core? What is at the core of the issue, climate change, right? And it's much more profound and deeper than most people know, or even those who advocate. Climate change is real, it's happening, it's dangerous. In 30, 40, 50 years, I don't know how many years they say, because of all the heat being trapped by the ozone due to CO2, too much CO2. CO2 is good. I'm breathing out. Remember photosynthesis? CO2 is a part of the equation. It makes green stuff green. Plants, shrubs, flowers, right? So CO2 is good. But allegedly, there's a tipping point. When there's too much, it causes problems, sometimes serious problems, where the ozone layer stiffens up and heat gets trapped in our atmosphere, causing eventually serious climate events. Did I say that right? Right? Storms, excessive storms, tsunamis, flooding, so forth and so on, right? And I asked them, what is climate? What is climate? Is it weather? What is weather? Let's start there. Define, definition, always define, right? That's where you usually start. Let's define things. You know what they're talking about. Define some of the basic terms in what it is you're talking about. Climate, what is climate? Climate is temperature, wind pressure, air pressure, wind, things like that, right? Climate is just that on a long-term basis, right? And I already described what the issue is, right? So allegedly, the seas are going to rise, everything is going to be flooded, at least the coastal regions, causing serious issues. We're going to have tsunamis and major storms and probably tornadoes thrown in there and whatever else happens with the weather and the weather sphere, right? And we're all going to die, right? Well, we're all going to die. That's a given, but sooner than expected, I guess, is the issue, right? And how do we stop that? Well, we've got to spend money. We've got to spend trillions. And I said, aren't we already trillions, 33, 34 trillion dollars in debt? Do we even have money to pay that? We're strapped as it is. So now you want us to pay up trillions of dollars more? And also, what I want to know, ask a climate advocate, specifically show me, how much money do you need? How's it going to be spent? And how's it going to fix things? Also, give me a track record of the people out there who are spending the money to fix things. Have they fixed things before? Do they have a successful track record, or are they just amateurs guessing? They really know? Can they fix it? Do you trust them? Why do you trust them? See what I'm saying? So there's a lot to it. But people just like to believe because they lean a particular way. I've always believed that, my party believes that, part of the clan, the cult believes it, so I just go with the cult, cult of personality, right? Careful, 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 and then also the stab, that was a big issue back in 2020 with COVID, getting an injection, what they call the stab, the poke. And a lot of people were taking sides on that and belittling those. If you took it, they belittled people who didn't take it. And if you didn't take it, people that took it were morons. And it's just, come on. Uh, People have regressed more and more over the years. Where as a nation, as a world, maybe it's America. Maybe I shouldn't include the rest of the world, but probably true about the rest of the world because we're all human. But we're a nation of infantile, overreacting, emotion based responders, right? It's especially when you're dealing climate. There's a myriad of inputs according to climate physicists. I don't listen to politicians. That was another point I was making. I don't listen to Al Gore and his inconvenient truths. And he talked about many things that have not happened. 2005, by 2014, he said, 10, 15 years previous, whenever that inconvenient truth came out. Remember, he went up on the cherry picker, this huge chart, and he's up there, and he's there. And I watched it, with heart and hand and barely breathing and a gasp. Oh no, that's it. Grab your knees and kiss everything goodbye, right? Al has spoken. The Gore man has given us a death wish, not so much a death wish, but a seal, death seal of approval. So I don't listen. I don't listen to scientists. I don't listen to mainstream media. I don't even listen to scientists unless it's an astro. That's a different category genre. Unless it's a climate physicist. Yeah. And these are people who are highly trained. They're like the Green Beret or the Army Rangers of scientists. Top notch, the best of the best, right? The best of the rest, the best, and then there's the rest. You can't say that, right? You see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? And actually, what climate physicists are saying is quite different from what those in politics, mainstream media, and other areas of lesser informed, lesser disciplined, lesser trained individuals are saying. I don't have an axe to grind. I don't have a button to push. I'm not like for, you got to believe climate change, or if you believe climate change, you're insane. If you don't believe it, you're insane. I'm of neither camp, right? I'm somewhere in the middle because I found out that there's much more to it. And we're really, we don't know. Well, there's more that we don't know than we do know, considering there's a myriad. Myriad means a lot, more than you can count even, of inputs into climate. Human input, sure, waste and debris into the environment, causing some of these problems, are contributing factors, but the scientists say they don't know how, to what degree, to what extent, how much, right? Don't look at me. I didn't say it. Go to the videos. It's online. Go do your research. Relevance, the reasoning directly bears upon the issue accuracy. The reasoning is based in facts that can be objectively verified, not cherry picked, not subjectively verified. Well, there's 100, there have been 100 cases, research cases. 9 agree with me, 91 do not. I'll ignore the other 91. Look, it's true because of these 9. Are there other cases out there? I thought there was like 100. No, just these 9. I've got money to make off this deal. I got an axe to grind. I've got power and influence. And that, you think that's funny. That's a part of the reasoning or reasons behind the issue, the hot topic, hot button topics or issues. Logicalness, the reasoning makes sense as a whole, comprehensive. The parts fit together, logically, comprehensive, significance. The reasoning is focused on the important issues and facts. Depth, the reasoner adequately deals with the complexities in the issue, comprehensive. Breadth, the reasoner fairly considers all relevant viewpoints. Fairness, the reasoner is fair to all sides, is not inappropriately self-serving or group-serving. Your Honor, I rest my case. Right? That's why I said you got to be above the fray. You got to be floating above it all, not in a superior nature, but in an independent, autonomous nature to really see. It might be painful to do that. You're really connected, emotionally connected, connected maybe for some time, maybe since you were born or generation to a particular idea, culture, religion, ideology, and I can't let it go, right? Sufficiency, the reasoner gathers enough information to effectively, deal with the issues. There you go, right? That's good. I like that. Those are the things that you need to print out, like those the lists. I think it's chapter 2. I think I said I was going to print that out. I have it somewhere. I might have it on my computer. Okay. Take a deeper look at universal intellectual standards. Thinking critically, I want to just stop for a second and see. Well, I might put this into 2 videos. Might have to, because I'm taking some time with it. Right. Take a deeper look at universal intellectual standards. Thinking critically, then, requires command of fundamental intellectual. I lost my highlights. Not in my hair. Those are beautiful. My highlights here are fine. Here. Thinking critically, then, requires command of fundamental intellectual standards. Critical thinkers routinely ask questions that hold thinking to intellectual standards. The ultimate goal is for these questions to become so spontaneous in thinking that they form a natural part of your inner voice. See, that's the organic or synthetic, or not synthetic, but organic nature of knowing, right? It becomes a part of you. It's almost like a part of your DNA, guiding you to better and better reasoning. Guiding, I like that word. A lot of great diction or word choice in this text. Very well written. In this section, we focus on the standards and questions that apply across the various facets of your life. If it's various facets of your life, then that's the stuff that my teaching is made of, right? What do most students need most of the time in the most situations? And then in critical thinking logically, rationally, and so forth, right? That is a major important tool, along with other things, for instance, knowing the laws of the land, the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, the Declaration of Independence, Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail, all of these, the Monroe document, all of these critically important documents, right? Clarity. Questions that focus on clarity. Could you elaborate on that point? Like some of the questions I was posing, or that you should pose to individuals who come forth with a statement of opinion allegedly based in fact. Allegedly. Could you express the point another way? Could you give me an illustration? Could you give me an example? And I do that constantly in my class. I initially speak in the abstract, right? But I always elaborate. You'll notice that I give specific examples, right? Can you elaborate? Can you tell us more? Can you express that in a different way? Can you illustrate? Give me a picture. Give me an example, another picture. Let me state my own words what I think you said. Tell me if I'm clear, right? That's how my students do peer reviews. I've got your essay here looks pretty good. I like your thesis. I think what you're saying in your thesis is. So the individual analyzing the paper is able to put the main point in his or her own words, right? And then verify it to see, fact check it to see if the person who wrote the paper agrees, concurs, right? Clarity is a gateway standard, like a gateway drug. What's a gateway drug to heroin? I don't know. Right? It'll get you there. It'll get you to the where you need to be, right? Look, they've got a for example. They do it. They do it. For example, let's look at this. This is important. Muy importante. If a statement is unclear, you cannot determine whether it is accurate or relevant. In fact, you cannot tell anything. Another absolute. Absolutes are important. Absolutes are rare. If they pop up, especially if smart people put them in there, then they probably mean it. Then it's significant, right? Because again, a lot of things, most things are not in absolute, right? Or are absolute. You cannot tell anything about it because you do not yet know what it is saying. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Here's your example. What can be done about education in America is unclear. Yeah, what does that mean? How about a clearer question? What can educators do to ensure that students learn the skills and abilities they need? Now we're getting there somewhere, right? A stranger, lone ranger, rearranger of thoughts and logic. What can educators do to ensure that students learn the skills and abilities they need to function? Look at that. Oh, sorry, I'm falling in love with its accuracy, its thoroughness, and its depth and breadth, and its objectivity. Right? What can educators do to ensure that students learn the skills and abilities they need to function successfully in all important domains of human life? That's the crux of the biscuit, right? As well as achieve self-fulfillment, self-actualization. Look up Maslow's chart. I think, what is there, like 5, 6 levels in there? Hierarchy of needs, right? At the bottom, you need food, shelter, relationships, and then you work your way up to self-actualization, which is the more abstract stuff, which is kind of what this is talking about, right? Self-fulfillment. Once you get all those bottom needs fixed, secured, I should say. See how I'm trying to pick the right words? You go to the top. Now I'm going to self-actualize for the greatest self-fulfillment and functionality in society to ensure that I am good to myself, my family, my community, people on the job, the people I affect on my job, community, state, nation, world. I don't know. How far do you want to take it? Your choice. It's a free country, right? So there it is. Not oops, there it is, Brittany, but intentfully. There it is. No oops here. You got any oops going on? Go sing that song. Perfectly fine. Good song. Got a lot of fun. Brittany's having problems lately. We all have problems. Maybe she'd have less problems if she was using critical thinking and not being manipulated and managed by a management team or family or whomever using her for ends to means that are not selfless but selfish. Questions focusing on making thinking more accurate. Is that really true? How can we check it to see if it's accurate? How do we find out whether that is true? Statement may be clear but not accurate. Most dogs weigh more than 300 pounds. That's clear. but it's clearly wrong. If that's true, damn, everybody's food bill is going to go way up, right? To be accurate is to represent things in accordance with the way they actually are, yet people frequently, not all, we're not in an absolute here, but close. Frequently, what's that, 70, 80, 90%? People frequently violate this standard. They often misrepresent or falsely describe things, if I could only read, especially when they have an interest in seeing or presenting reality in a certain way. Advertisers often do this. Politicians do this. Those in the media do that way too often. I've stopped listening to mainstream media, MSLSD, the Comedy News Network, Fox News, FAUX. You know what Fox is? FAUX, fake news. They're all pretty baseless, right? As Trump likes, fake news, fake news. Anyways, it's only in recent years that politicians and politics have become more entertaining than entertainment. I think the movies have gotten worse, late night television has gotten worse, but politics, man. You want some things that will really make you go, huh? Like the questioning of Hillary and Bill Clinton. That's a circus. Good Lord. Or all the people now in politics or in business or even royalty. Royalty lost one of the royal figures back in the UK, United Kingdom, Britain actually. Lost his inheritance because he was associated with Epstein in a bad way. Right? If an advertisement states over our water, what can I read? Our water is 100% pure, when in fact the water contains small parts of chemicals, so forth. Right? If an advertisement states this bread contains 100% whole wheat, right, when it's been bleached and enriched and the bread contains many additives, right? Advertisers are the worst, right? Mainstream media, terrible. I remember when Trump was first in office, somebody on MSNBC said that Trump is going to put blacks into chains and send them back to Africa. My cousin, one of my cousins, was all upset because Trump was going to end gay marriages. I said, he can't do that. You have to go through Congress, right? And there has to be a majority of, what is it, 430, 535, right? 435 in the House, 100 in the Senate. 535, there has to be a majority of those who say gay marriages are annulled. And why would we do that? It's not a big issue. Marry a tree, you know? The most important stuff is life and death stuff, you know, our security, our safety, global issues, the environment, I guess, is pretty big. Making sure that we have jobs, making sure that we can pay the bills and pay for the things and have safety net, insurance, and all that stuff. Whether you're married to your own sect or somebody else's sect or no sect or whatever, you know, well, some of that might be odd or even illegal, but I think that's the least of most people's concerns, right? So I had her calm down. She thought, oh, okay. And this is why you got to know stuff, right? Many politicians distort information, blatantly lying, asserting false claims as truths through camouflage. They do it all the time. Doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican. I've heard them all lie. Trump, I think Trump is just his ego. I think his ego overrides any logic or common sense. He just, Biden, that's a different story. He was losing it towards the end there. You know the thing, blah, 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 blah. We've got to, what did he say about Medicare? We've got to Medicare. We got to fight Medicare or something like that, you know. And George Bush really said some really not so smart things, you know. He said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice is supposed to be shame on me because I got fooled twice. And he goes, fool me twice. We won't get fooled again. He went to the lyric from a Who song, a rock and roll band, right? Or I like the Republican, I think it's Johnson, I think he's a representative. He was asking, oh my gosh, he was asking a general in the military about Guam. If we put too many troops on there, will the island capsize? I just wanted to shoot myself. Seriously. Has it come to the, or Nancy Pelosi talking about Korea? It's not Korea. That's further east. It's Crimea, right? Which is was part of Russia. Uh, what else was it? Obama said there were 51 states, but that was just error oversight. If you speak enough, I'm making errors as I'm speaking. If you talk enough, politicians talk enough, they're going to make an error. They're going to make errors. But if you're making errors over and over and over again, then there's an issue. Or if you're just making up stuff or lying, there's an issue, right? The following is a fact followed by something untrue they want people to accept uncritically. This has become so common. Yes. We got to go to the next page. This has become so common to hear in reaction. Oh, my highlights are back. My highlights are back. The term true fact in the news media, true fact, that's redundant. A fact is generally true. So now there's false facts and true facts, made up facts and actual facts, I guess. I don't know. In reference to something true, but facts are by implication true. I said that, right? True fact. If the truth becomes the same as a lie, if any falsity can pass as true, if any word can be used to mean its opposite, the language structure itself begins to crumble, and then significant advancement of the human species is hard to envision. So in politics, in the political arena, certain things that are said by hated politicians are cherry picked or taken out of context or managed or isolated or changed or whatever. And just repeated enough, often enough, by those who hate, even if you tell them that's not true. Here's the original statement. You can see that it's not true. They'll just ignore that and keep going with it. But they don't care. Some people don't care. And it's been shown that people would rather would rather stick to their guns and what they believe and feel and have believed and felt for some time than go with the facts. Even if there's extensive, exhaustive research that shows them to be wrong, they don't want to know. Speak to the hand. Face ain't listening, right? And that's a problem. Don't be one of those people. Don't do it, man. All this tires me out. Critical thinking then implies a healthy skepticism, right? Wait a minute. I'm not really sure about that. Let me check it out. Let me think about it. Let me research it. About public deceptions, what is not fact. At the same time, because we tend to think from a narrow, self-serving perspective, right? We're in this meat sock. Isn't that what the guy, the alien from Men in Black, what do they call him? This meat sock is garbage. He's complaining about the alien is inside a human. I saw a criminal, I think it was, or a farmer maybe. This meat sock, myself serving respect. Assessing ideas for accuracy can be difficult. We naturally tend to believe that our thoughts are automatically accurate. There you go. I just talked about that. Just because they are ours and we love them and we've always had them and we've always loved them and we love those who have had them before us and whatever, that the thoughts of those who disagree with us are inaccurate. We also fail to question statements others make to confirm that what we already believe, we tend to question statements that conflict with our views. Right? Precision. Questions in regards to precision. Could you give me more details? Could you be more specific? Statement can be well clear. Yeah, we talked about that, right? Can be clear and accurate, not precise. Jack is overweight. That's true. What is overweight, though? Right? 2 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds. How? Be precise. Jack is obese, grossly obese, unhealthily. Is that such a word? Unhealthily, unhealthy, overweight, unhealthily overweight. He's obese, morbidly obese, 40, 50, 60, 100 pounds overweight, right? Something like that. How are we doing? How are we doing on time? It's up to 10. Oh, it goes up to 122. So I think we're going to have to end it. Relevance, well, I think we'll end it here, okay, just for brevity's sake. Give you a break, put it into another video, the rest of it. Relevance. Questions focusing on relevance include: how is the idea connected to the question? How does that bear on the issue? How does this idea relate to the other? And at first, you have to ask all these questions and be kind of very deliberate and cumbersome in your deliberateness and your deliberating to learn this stuff and go over it again and again and again. But after a while, it just becomes more natural, and you don't have to belabor the points, right? And you can shortcut to an answer because you have organically learned this stuff and are beyond having to, it's like when you learn, first start with basketball. We're going to do some layup drills. Right side, left foot, right hand. Off the left foot, right hand. On the left side, off the right foot, left hand, right. We'll practice that. Get your steps coordinated. Get your hands and legs coordinated. Do it again and again and again. You're thinking about it and you're stumbling and you go off the wrong foot and blah, 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 right? Then after a while, you're doing it. You're reversing the feet. Even sometimes you're going under the basket, off the wrong foot, putting it in, right? But, you want the standard. You want to learn it first, and then you can be creative, right? They often talk about like Tiger Woods being creative on the golf course. Basically, he's doing stuff that nobody else is, right? He's beyond the standards of basics. He's advanced. He's an advanced golfer, physical specimen, not specimen, physical athlete, right? Statement can be clear, accurate, precise, but not relevant to the question at issue. For example, students often think the amount of effort, yeah, there you go. But I really tried, yeah, but you're still getting an F, right? And somebody else who hardly tried at all got an A because they did it right. Should contribute to raising their grade in the course. However, effort alone, true, does not equate to quality work. Who was it? Beethoven put tons of work into getting the final product, and Mozart put very little work into getting the final product, and both had great final products. Is one better than the other? No. Who cares? As long as you get a great final product. Relevant thinking stays on track. Thinking often is irrelevant because, yeah, it's true. People lack discipline in thinking. They don't know how to analyze an issue for what truly bears on it. They aren't able to think their way effectively through the problems and issues they face because they lack a focus in what is relevant and only what is relevant. Minds wander so very easily, so readily, right? Like a little kid's mind, I remember I was talking to a friend and her daughter came up and said, "Mom, when I die, will I dream of dinosaurs?" No drugs involved, right? Allegedly, kids are very extremely unencumbered and creative. And the older they get, the less creative they are. That creativity is maybe educated out of them by some poor thinking or some poor pedagogy or educating methodologies. I don't know. That's one philosophy. I think it's just you get older. You go through different stages, right? You become more self-aware, self-concerned. Like a teenager. I don't know. What am I wearing? Is that right? And people are going to make fun of me. And when you're younger, you just fly around. You don't care. You run around the neighborhood half naked, saying stuff, dancing here. Then you get older, you become a little more self-aware. So we do change, right? We do change and grow. Some grow for the better, some for the worse. But anyways, that's it for now. When we come back, we'll go 96 through 122. And that's it for now.